everybody. My name is Randy Morris. I'm the host of The Randy Mo Show. Welcome you to the very first episode, and what is going to be a very fun, adventurous tour for you all. We're going to have many different guests on our show from different aspects of talent in the industry of film, theater, and entertainment, both discussions and live performances. Our very first episode today, we are featuring who I may say is my personal mentor, Mr. Reno Veturi, who I consider to be one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry that I have met yet.
Well, thank you, Randy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. Since the very first time we've met, which was kind of in an interesting way, I happened to venture down into Connecticut and got the opportunity to meet you and tour your facility, the Actors Gym, which has brought me into fulfilling my desire of really pursuing my chase and dream of an actor. Here I sit now as the host. I'm now interested in letting you tell people the things that you told me along the way.
Okay, well, that's a pretty big list. Where would you like me to start?
Well, I guess the first part is a lot of people are interested in the acting field.
Yep.
And I guess maybe start off with, if a person is interested, what would be some of the steps that they might want to take to begin? And what kind of things should they think of as they go to venture down this path?
Well, I'm going to say the first thing they should think about is keep in mind that it's called show business for a reason, because it's kind of a business. It's fun, but it's also a lot of work. So I'm going to say if you're actually interested in acting, you might want to find some training somewhere because it gives you a little heads up on what's expected, where you begin, and it also starts your networking journey because you want to network with people that are involved in this business or share the same passion you share. So you want to find people that maybe are involved with community theater for starters and ultimately indie films and kind of work your way up from there.
Now, training, I've many a times I've been on the web and I see all kinds of things. Oh, training here, training here. You can find things on certain web searches. Are they trustable?
Not all of them.
Are they usable?
Nope. I'm going to tell you, luckily, with the advent of the internet, people can do research now. And I'm going to say that probably 9 out of 10 are probably not people you want to deal with. But if you search hard enough, you're going to find out what the reviews are on whoever this is that's doing the training. And there's a lot of unsavory groups. Actually, I list them on my webpage. I won't say them today, but people can find them out kind of on their own. There's a lot of people that don't have your best interest in mind, and that's the one thing, especially if you have kids, because there's a lot of organizations out there now that really take advantage of parents that, once you hear your kids got that certain something, it really is actually your checkbook, but you'll put it all out there. So I'm going to say do research.
So your checkbook, so people should, what do you mean, the checkbook? I mean, why should,
Well, because there's organizations out there right now, what they'll do is they'll say your kid's got that certain something. So they'll say, wow, if you give us $2,000, we'll put your kid in front of a casting director, which makes no sense. Because I am a casting director, and I'll see people for free. Because my job as a casting director is to see new people, find new people, and I make my money once I get them cast. You shouldn't pay me to come see me. So if your child isn't ready to be seen by a casting director, why would you put them in front of a casting director? And why would you pay money to do it?
With that being said, so explain this transition. So I come to you, you're going to cast me. If I'm not paying you, who's paying you? So that other people can understand how the process really works.
So the actor never pays the casting director. Who pays me is the company that hired me to find you. So if you're cast, let's just say you're cast in, like right now I'm casting 4 different commercials and I'm casting a film. And one of the commercials pays $400. So my job as a casting director is to bring them as many faces as I can within a certain type they're looking for. So if they cast you and they pay you $400, then they separately pay me 20% of that. So they'll give me $80 because I cast you. Plus I charge a casting fee on top of it for the company, but it saves a whole lot of work for them because whenever there's an audition notice, there's typically 500 to 1,000 headshots that get submitted. So it pays to pay someone to do it for you, especially when you're trying to produce something.
To sift through it because the director or whomever doesn't need to go through all that. They kind of say,
I
okay,
narrow
hey,
it down.
you do this.
Right.
You summarize it, and bring them to me to save me. Now, are different casting directors better than others?
Well, I think some work a little bit harder. I try to get to know majority of my talent, and actually the casting director doesn't have a lot of power. People think that we are the one that actually hires them, but we're not. It's actually the company that we're casting for that hires them. The power that I have is, let's just say I worked with you before. So if I submit you and they say, we like these 3 people and one of them happens to be you, I can say, well, I've worked with him before and he's very easy to work with. He's punctual, he's always on time, he's not a pain in the neck. And they might go, okay, yeah, go ahead and call him, and they'll say, book you. And so then I call you and I say, are you available this day? I offer you the job and we lock you in.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Now, let's back up some. Somebody that's beginning out, what are the tools that they need to begin the process? Now, I remember the steps in the process that I went through, and the very first thing that was said to me was, you need a headshot. Now, I know it's a very crucial tool, very, very crucial in more ways than one. I was kind of surprised as to my entry, but that's not the case for everybody else. Now, for everybody else or somebody going in, what is the proper beginning tools that they should bring with them to begin this journey?
Well, a headshot's kind of premature if you're just starting, because to say you have a headshot says you have something to bring to the game. So that's why I always say get some kind of training and find somebody that has your best interest in mind, that will teach you the foundations of acting. What is the foundation of acting? Because acting isn't what people think it is. They think it's this, they saw somebody act and it looked easy, so they assume they can do it. But that's why they assume they can do it, because it looks easy, but it's not. It's because those people were trained. They know what they're doing. They understand how to take a script, how to take it apart, and how to bring a character to life. So there are fundamental rules that you work on, such as who, what, why, when, and where. What do you want? How are you going to get it? What tactics to use? There's also study. There's certain techniques that you can study, such as Stanislavski or Meisner, Uta Hagen, you name it, Lee Strasberg, who I actually studied with many, many years ago. And so once you start to understand the foundation of it, then you might be interested in getting a headshot to start marketing yourself. But don't market yourself if you don't really have anything to market yet. And the main reason is you don't always get a second chance to make a first impression. So people come audition for me sometimes and they're totally not prepared. What they did get was a headshot. They put together a resume, but there's really nothing on the resume. Mm-hmm. So they come audition for me and they're terrible. Mm-hmm. So I don't cast them. I don't use them. I can't use them because I can't put them in front of a client. So what will happen next is maybe they go get some training. They resubmit to me a year later. Sadly, and this is true of a lot of casting directors I talk to, in the back of my mind, I remember that person. I go, forget it, and I just push them aside. I don't even bother to look at it again. So sometimes they have to resubmit 3 or 4 more times to me before I go, well, maybe they got some training and I'll look.
Before you actually get this chance to see, because that first impression is burned.
It stays with you. And we all talk to each other, because we call each other and we go, hey, did you ever work with so-and-so? Oh, yeah, oh my God, no, right. So so it's better to get some kind of training first. Just like if you're going to be an attorney, learn to be an attorney first. Don't go just try a case. If you're going to be a surgeon, don't just do surgery. Learn to be a surgeon.
I can't just take the knife and
no.
The scalpel ain't going to do it.
No, that's what they do. So I do that. I train actors. I train actors in that respect. I'm also an actor's advocate. New York Times called me the #1 actor's advocate on the East Coast. And it's because I support people that have the hunger, the desire, and I try to focus them and sort of direct them the right way.
Now, for people that have this hunger, they're watching right now, they're saying, yes, okay, I'm feeling it.
Yep.
Where would they reach as far as training? Okay, so they're going to research their training, they find somebody. Are there any particular books?
All kinds of books. So
any one in particular, or are they all good?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's got a different twist on it. So acting is like a plumber that brings a bag of tools to a job. He may not use them all, but the one he needs is probably going to be in that bag. So it's good to read as much of anything that's out there. Larry Moss has got one of the #1 books out right now, and I always suggest that book. And people say, well, it's an awesome book, and he teaches a lot like you do, and maybe that's why I favor him. But It's all great foundational information. It teaches people what they need. So as an actor, you continue to learn. Like right now, I coach actors that are on Broadway. I coach actors that do TV shows, that have films, because what they know is they always have something to learn. So each week, say in my ongoing class, I give them a new tool for their bag. They may not use all those tools, and they may not all resonate with those, whatever I give them, but something in there is going to strike a chord. So when people say, well, what is your, what's the best technique for an actor? Well, there is no one best technique. It's whatever you develop that helps you get the job done.
Speaking of technique, now we're going to venture into a really fun area. It's something that you and I have actually discussed in the past. You currently, right now, run the Actors Gym.
Yep.
Where you give classes.
Yes.
You teach classes.
Yep.
You run a production company.
I do.
You run theater.
Yep.
And you're a casting director. It's kind of wide. But there's a little separation that most people might not realize is that you do theater and production. And the production necessarily isn't theater.
They're two different things.
And that is maybe something that people might want to say, wait a second. Because I've worked with people that have done theater, and they walk onto the set, on a film set, and it's like, oh, hold on a second, because you can, the greenness of being on the film set is brought forward because the camera can't keep up with you.
Well, they're too big is the problem. So when you are...
And defining the, I guess what I'm looking for is not a definition of the two, is maybe a little explanation of one versus the other.
Well, the big difference is, number one, you're throwing your energy further on a live stage. You're throwing it to the back of the house. You're projecting a little bit differently. Your emotions are a little bit larger. Your physical movements are a little bit larger. The difference is on camera, it picks up every little thing. So you still want to have the same energy internally, but you have to scale down everything else a little bit. Otherwise, it's just too much, and the camera it's overwhelming. And it becomes what they call acty. And the rule of thumb is to never let them catch you acting. So if you're trying to do big theater in front of a small camera, it's going to always look acty. So avoid it. One does support the other, though. Like, I think it's good to know both, because they both require that you support your voice, that you articulate well, that you know how to hold yourself, carry yourself according to whatever the character is you're playing. Those things are always going to be true for both.
Okay. Now, if somebody has done theater and they're involved in theater and they want to do the transition to film, what are some of the things that you might suggest to them in making that process through? I mean, I know that one of the things that I overheard was you have to tone down, you have to stay still, because the camera can't chase you all over the place. Your movements are too large. It's not so much the throwing of the voice, but it's in theater that I know is that there is a lot of movement. There's a very large stage, whereas in film it's a very small, very tight shot, and you don't necessarily have that. I mean, a lot of people don't actually know what goes on behind the camera of the camera magic.
Well, it kind of depends what shot's being taken, because actually in film, we take a number of shots, and we may film the same scene 10 different ways. And the initial shot that we do is called an establishing shot. So it's a big, wide shot. So you move whatever way you would move naturally. As we come in for an OTS, which is over the shoulder, or we come in for a close-up or a medium close-up, then we sort of have you not be as big or as broad, because now we're trying to get a close-up. So you're doing a little bit of both, but you have to be aware of what shot's being taken. So you learn that. And actually a lot of people, everybody's making films now. Indie film is really huge right now. There's a lot of web series going on right now. Not everybody's a great director, but they're out there and they're doing the best they can. If nothing else, you at least get a little experience working on the camera, in front of the camera. Again, I would still get training. Which
is bringing us to a fun avenue right there. When you start mentioning about Indian web, is that something new that's occurring? Well, it's not really new that's occurring. Something that's occurring in Hollywood is that remakes.
Yeah.
It appears that everything is being remade. Nothing new is coming out. Years ago, now, I don't know the exact statistical numbers, but years ago, the studios did almost 95% of the films.
Right.
And 5% were independent. And that, that has teetered and changed and is swinging almost in the opposite direction.
Correct.
Whereas independent films are taken over from the studios, and the studios, their answer appears to be, well, we'll just remake it.
Well, I mean, what's happened right now is that a lot of it is budgetary constraints. So a lot of the remakes are being done because it's the tried and true formula. It's a formula they know works, and so that's why they go with it, because it's got a track record. Whereas indie filmmakers are willing to take risk and try, things that maybe hadn't been thought of, or new angles, or new subjects that previously in the past people were afraid to maybe approach. But a lot of the big studios are still coming in later and supporting those indie films. So they're doing that to slap their name on it so they can keep their name out there. And especially nowadays, like, equipment is available to everybody. And you don't even have to have the best equipment in the world. You can take a new iPhone right now and you can actually shoot an entire movie on an iPhone, because it's more about lighting than it is the actual camera that you have.
I've actually I've caught and, surfed on the web and seen movies. I was like, that's from a phone.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's
all from a phone. And yeah, okay.
It's the user, not the equipment. And, and especially in post, when somebody edits, if somebody really knows how to edit something, that can make anything look amazing. The downfall typically in indie filmmaking, the biggest downfall is bad sound. And if you have bad sound, it can really destroy the quality of the whole film. So sound really is kind of utmost important. And like currently what we use like Sennheiser, and we use lavalier, and we use some high-end boom mics and things like that, because to me the sound has to be right, because the audience doesn't realize that's why they're being annoyed with this film. It's usually because the sound isn't right.
Now, what I've also heard is a large constraint for the indie films is that they can't get them into theaters because the theaters are part of a group or an association which won't allow them to get in, so they have to play it outside. And that cuts into their budget, their income, potential income that they could actually get, and their exposure that they could actually get. Almost like they're being stopped, they're being barricaded from being able to advance where they want to. And now there's new markets on the web where there's new institutions that are now saying, hey, yeah, you will support you. And that, and now they're downloadable. You can buy them online. They're at a low cost. They don't have the seats to fill. They don't have the theaters anymore. Theaters are disappearing and becoming a thing of the past because, and now it's almost to the point where big Hollywood is biting its nose to spite its face because, yeah, we control the theaters, but well, nobody wants to go to the theater. I can watch a movie on my phone now.
Correct. But also that...
And again and again and again, it's
the other
fine.
side, though, is that studios are still coming in, though, when they find something that's got a real merit and they're adding their name to it. And then they will release it, and they will release it to all the theaters. So it's really kind of about an end product and what you come up with. I produce, and I produced a web series called Pleading Sanity that I did literally as a learning tool for my students. Well, it ended up becoming super popular. And next thing I know, people from the UK were contacting me and wanting to lease it from me so they can show it on their mainstream TV. So sometimes just by doing great work, people will notice your work and they will distribute it for you. On the other side of it, sometimes you've got to work really hard to get your stuff distributed. So a lot of it is in rentals. So if you're a filmmaker, you can get stuff online and actually have it put on one of the cable networks as a rental. So you can make income that way. So, I mean, there's a lot changing these days. It's been going on for about 8-9 years now, though. The whole indie market and people creating their own things.
And the cost of equipment is dropping.
Tremendously.
And it's rentable.
Well, like right
But
now...
the thing is, you have to know how to use it.
Well, I'm going to say a lot of it is the user, but there's like a black magic camera out there that sort of replaced the red camera. And the red camera originally, when it came out, was like 40 grand. Well, you can buy a black magic now for about 4 grand, and it has the same quality. So things are becoming more attainable from just everybody on the street. That's good and bad. The good is that the real filmmakers have access to it. But the bad is the bad filmmakers have access to it.
Well, I mean, if you don't like a film, you don't watch it. I mean, you don't have to watch it.
Yeah, but the big part of that is that some people that are making really, really great films, it kind of burns people out. They're like, no, I've seen some independent films and they were terrible, when there may be some really amazing ones out there. So people start to close themselves off from watching,
Independent
everything.
films in general.
And that's what upsets me. I'm like, Jesus, people, you got to have some kind of quality control. Think about what you're doing. Learn what you're doing. Like, that's why we're in this business, is to create art and to get better and better and better at it.
Speaking of the learning, let's switch that back to you now. Now, as far as learning, you teach.
I do.
What levels and how much do you teach?
Well, I teach live, and at my particular studio, I independently teach actually at Yale University, but I also teach in my own school, and we teach anything you want to know about acting, everything from teleprompter to beginning acting, film and TV, commercial, musical theater, voiceover. We try to cover whatever the market is asking for. Originally, I just was doing like a class or two because I was vice president of a TV film company in Connecticut. And they said, why don't you teach a class? I said, yeah, I'll teach one a week. Well, now it's 4 a week. So we pretty much cover anything and everything as well as privately coach. And I bring in guests, too. I brought in people from soap operas, people that I've worked with in TV. I bring them in to do like a little guest workshop or something, and people always like that.
And you are located?
I am located in Connecticut, in Hamden, Connecticut, as a matter of fact. And actorsgym.net, people can find me all over. Do a search, put my name, Reno Veturi, in a search.
There you go, folks. actorsgym.net. Nice. Now, I'm going to wrap up now real quick. Speaking of beginning, I do want to let my studio audience know that here at the Hudson Studio, I am accepting people to come in and become an intern on a basis of learning how to actually, the beginning process of what actually occurs, because you see us sitting here, but what you don't see is what's happening over there. And that is truly an essential part of the beginning. I think Reno will agree, is that, you have to watch what's going on because, although we're sitting here, we do have cords attached to us, and there is a lot involved. I mean, adjustment of the lights, position of the chairs, there's a lot of parts involved. And, we'd be looking forward to you coming and, teaching you and letting you have an opportunity to learn how to use the equipment and to, learn what it's all truly about. You can find me on the internet, and you can find this episode on the internet, also on the show, at therandymoshow.com. And I thank you, Mr. Reno Veturi.
Thank you, sir. It was my pleasure. Anytime.
And look forward to hearing any reviews from my guest, and we'll be looking to see and speaking with you again.
Yeah, and
in a
I'll be
later
looking
episode.
for all of you.
Thank you.